In this episode, I talk about my own stress and anxiety as a student and why talking at schools is so important.
This is how legends are made.
In today's episode, I wanted to talk about a talk that I gave at a school recently. So for me, what I do is actually just share my story, which I'm not sure I've actually mentioned before, but if I haven't, then I apologise. If I have, then apologies for hearing it again. I went to private school, and whilst the school was actually fantastic and a great place to nurture a child, I never achieved academically very well. I came out with some very low grades, and I don't think actually maybe one pass grade for all of the 9 subjects. What was interesting is that for me, and what I relate, is that I went through a real, very chronic anxiety over exams and over studying and over the whole kind of that period of time, the last few years of school, where you were kind of looking to achieve well in exams. And I just felt crippled by what was happening. And so how I just felt was that I went off looking for ways to do 2 things actually. One was to go to self-help sections of bookstores and read and try to understand what was going on in my mind, and that becomes later stories. But I was also looking to find out and buying books on how to study. And the joke that I kind of open with is that I spent more time studying how to study than actually reading up or studying the subjects themselves. I was so crippled by the idea that I didn't know if I knew what I was reading, if I understood it. I didn't know where it'd gone to. I didn't know if I could retain it and then bring it out when needed. Just a lot of anxiety, a lot of doubt, a lot of self-doubt over my ability. So with these kind of questions in my head, approaching any test or exam situation, the whole kind of the funnel of thinking closed up. And for me, it was a complete mental block where I wasn't able to kind of break free from this thinking. I was completely consumed by it. So the conversations I have in the schools of the talk that I give, it's actually about recognizing that it's that funnel. We need to find ways to open up further so that we can allow answers, creativity, and so on to come through and then present the best that we can in the particular exam environment. So I talk about how to do that, and it can be a very simple meditation. So I lead them in slightly a tricky way by not saying that it's a meditation. I simply ask them to draw their attention to their breathing, their posture, and how they're sat, and just for a moment just to notice it. And then at the end I just say that, as its simplest form, that's meditation. It's where you're cutting out noise and just listening to yourself. And whatever form that is, it's not about changing anything, it's about awareness. And certainly I think that's one of the tools that I would have appreciated when I was younger, is a way to calm down the kind of external noise as much as the internal noise. And the internal noise of my own critical thinking was about just kind of calming it down, focusing on my own breathing and practicing that, so that I was in a better position to study and to remove this recycling negative thought about my ability. So I try and give that to the students as a meditation, which may offer them some sort of respite from any concerns I have. And then the other things that I wish I had been told 2 other things I wish I'd been told when I was their age, is very much about how to handle anxiety by changing the shape of it, by changing the color of it. So I ask them to represent the anxiety they see by a shape or a color, and then how we play around with that shape and the color can change how we feel about the anxiety. And the more we do that, we can actually begin to reduce the anxiety and make it far more manageable. I think the thing is about not removing anxiety or worry entirely, it's about reducing it so it's more manageable. We can cope with it better and actually focus on achieving what we want, and the worry and the concerns can be in the background rather than so in the foreground. And the final step that I offer is very much this. They have another, because they're about 14, 15 years old, they have potentially, the way health is going, they could have another 75 years ahead of them. They could easily have another 75 years, and these period of 9 years of education, maybe 10 years, need not define who they are. They can have so many more chapters of their life available to them. If they're not connecting with the education, not connecting with the outcomes of grades and moving on to a career that they've chosen, that's fine. They can come through the education system and then search and try and taste other things. And I think that's what I would have loved to have heard. This is important if you are connecting with the grades and moving forward to university. If it doesn't speak to you, if you're not feeling any passion for it, then that's okay. Now you have the task of trying absolutely everything you can get your hands on to find out, to taste, to try, to test, and work out what you do like. Once we can accept that we don't have to be defined by school or success or failure within the school, but we can have other things, all of a sudden we can create opportunities and choice. And when I had that as a selection or as a thought process, I think I would have eased up on myself of thinking, well, let's get through this period, and what I come out with, I come out with. But I would have been even more tuned to a task. Like, right, that's it. Education wasn't for me. Right, what do I do now? A bit of everything. Give 6 months ago and everything I can find, and taste it and work out what suited me and what I got more passionate about. So that's why I really want to give the students a real bit of perspective. That, coupled with the meditation and some of the anxiety kind of crushing techniques, hopefully gave them, in the space of 15 minutes, something to think about. And the thing that I start with, I'll end with. I appreciate that of all the people who hear me speak or watching this, I may only connect with a few of you. But if a few of you can take this information, feel a difference, make a difference, do something differently, and get a change that takes them to where they want to be, then that is 1,000% worth it. So that was what my day was like, and I wanted to share that and to give you just kind of a background to it. If you want to hear the talk, it's going to be on my podcast in the next few days, so go and check that out. Other than that, have a fantastic day wherever you are.
This is how legends are made.